Okay, so it's so nice to meet you. My
Yeah.
name is Hamza Ali from Always Watching. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you, Hamza. Lovely to talk to you.
Something that really stuck out at me is Poole's character. Her faith in her husband never changes, but her opinion about marriage does. So, can you discuss Poole's character and how she reflects changing attitudes towards marriage?
Poole actually was the most interesting arc for me in the film because she goes from someone who has been conditioned to think a certain way about her potential, her identity, slowly through her interactions and experiences, finds this sort of space to be herself within the structure of marriage, which I think is a really interesting and important arc for any woman who is a homemaker and sometimes feels that their lives are defined by marriage. And I think the fact that Poole, begins to take pleasure in her own talent, begins to think of herself as an individual. These were things that were very important for us in the story. And that I think is so important also to highlight to anyone in a marriage, because the marriage as an institution still has the space for people to have their own identities. So, as a character, I felt that that was really powerful in terms of empowering Pool and people who, like Pool, are homemakers.
Speaking of institutions, you could have easily called this movie Lost Men. Their first
Mhm.
reaction is to go to the system, to go to the police and have them figure it out. Whereas the women
Mhm.
are very afraid. So can you discuss the inspector's character and how difficult it is for women to hold the men, especially in their lives, accountable for their actions?
Um, e- yeah, we actually this film really in some way explores a spectrum of both masculinity and femininity. And in the male characters, actually, we have a really rich kind of tapestry of kinds of men. And in this particular case of you talked about the institutions and the police. It was something of a surprise that the same institution that people view with some degree of fear and suspicion can also have men who can be allies in a woman's journey. And that actually is important to us to portray because otherwise women actually feel underconfident about, you know, approaching, say, the police or any administration with some of their problems, thinking that, and often does happen, that they're not going to be taken seriously. And I think it's really important that we feel the confidence, feel the kind of security that we will be given some sort of a hearing. And sometimes we'd be surprised by the kind of allies that we find among men. I think it's really, really critical that men, as um, in a society, contribute towards a more equitable, hopeful future for women.
Yeah, one thing that really struck me is the contrast between Jaya's husband. He's never on screen.
Mm.
And whereas Deepak is constantly on screen, even if he's not doing anything. Can you just discuss that contrast in terms of like the spectrum of men that you were able to portray in this movie?
Yeah, we with Deepak's character, I think what was interesting was that he embodied in some ways a very unusual hero or male protagonist because he was full of frailties. He was unsure of himself. He's not very clever. He's not the strongest person in the room, and he actually doesn't end up doing very much except running from pillar to post because he's so in love and he wants to do something. But his earnestness, his strength of character, his love and his desire to see his wife home was, we thought, really strong green flags in a man, wanting to support his partner and wanting to ensure that she is okay. was is unusual actually for a film hero. Like he's actually entirely defined by in his partner actually, and the fact that he's open and he's vulnerable enough to cry. He's so worried are things that you don't often see. And I think having that spectrum of men where they have these qualities of empathy, these qualities of vulnerability are unusual in a Hindi film hero. And I think despite that, your heart is goes out to him. And I mean, despite him not doing very much, you are entirely behind his character, as opposed to Pradeep, who embodies a lot of the more antagonists that we've seen in Hindi films that don't have that much nuance and subtlety and are kind of painted with a fairly black brush. I wasn't able to create enough good in him to redeem him. He's one of those out and out bad guys, but I think between the two of them, they cover a pretty wide spectrum.
Yeah, so as you said, Deepak is entirely defined by his wife, and it's killing him because Poole doesn't know. She doesn't know if she was abandoned, she doesn't know anything, and she has no way of finding out. So, how are you able to weaponize her lack of knowledge to show how women are able to survive in any circumstance?
Um, it was a kind of a balance that we had to strike, because actually in India, there can be horrible things that happen if a woman gets lost in the middle of nowhere. And we did want to address the fact that it is scary out there. It could be dangerous. But at the same time, the world is also full of good people. There are people who will be there to help if should you ask for it. And honestly, we wanted to give women also the sense of confidence that, if you do venture out, it's not all bad out there. And like Chotu says in the film, things are not quite what they seem. They don't judge a book by its cover. These two seem like scary people on the railway station, but turn out to be really regular good guys. So actually, we did want Poole to have that sort of journey, experiencing first the terror of the outside world, and then realizing that, wait a minute, I think I can make my way in this space. There is a place for me here, and I thought I was completely incapable of looking after myself, and I was completely, in a sense, innocent and vulnerable, and wasn't keen on experiencing the outside world. But now there's a sense of revelation, there's a sense of discovery, because you realize that there's so much in the outside world that she enjoys and she can learn from, and she values.
Yeah, there's a movie you reference in your movie, and it's almost like the opposite because Poole's character, she knows who to trust. And I'm happy
Mm.
that the women around her were able to support her. And in terms of Jaya's character, I really love the impact that she had in Deepak's home in terms of bringing all these women together. So, can you just discuss her impact and maybe also these changing attitudes regarding a woman's role in the home itself?
Hmm. Jaya's character was really a catalyst in some ways in the household that she comes into, because she sort of compels them to change the way they view themselves and their own identity within a very conservative domestic setup. I think we all have encountered women like this who have given their lives to their families and don't question the fact that they have had to give up a lot of what they love in order to be able to keep this family and actually the whole world running. And honestly, that little insight from her that, once in a while, why don't you cook this for yourself sometimes? You like this dish, just because your husband and son don't. Why do you not make it for yourself? And then she realizes how we've stopped doing things for ourselves because we put everyone else first. And I think that um, was one of the more, I feel, empowering messages we could give in a very, very light and small way, that it is important to find that space to be yourself, even if within that conventional setup. And I think that is a really powerful idea,
Yeah, one
that
of my
you
yeah.
not entirely only defined by marriage. You are also an individual and a human being with wants, desires, likes, dislikes, and that you have to value yourself, and make yourself a priority.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is, when do women ever cook a meal they like? It's very true.
Yeah,
It's always around the family.
exactly. Yeah.
So last question, something that I love that you did is the veil. You
Hmm.
used it, it protects Jaya and it also saves her from what could have been a very bad situation. And so can you
Right.
explain how you're able to toy with a lot of these marriage rituals to give her some autonomy?
So yeah, the veil was a really interesting tool for us because while it's something that has been maligned a lot as, highly conservative, or in many cases a constraint, like we see what happens that they are switched because of it. It's also, like you said, a tool of concealment that she uses to her advantage. It's like a veil of protection. And honestly, it was also therefore to explore the fact that while it can be a constraint, and women should, absolutely not use it if they don't really want to. At the same time, something like a very, very traditional garment is repurposed by Pool, where she puts her earnings into that very same dupatta that was covering her head. So it can be used to empower you if you look at it in a certain way. And honestly, the fact that it can both reveal and conceal is used by women to their advantage. So I think it was a metaphor, really. It can be this limitation that women have, and like she says, you can't see more than someone's shoes. But still, because of her intelligence and her, ability to be inventive, she uses it to, kind of avoid getting caught. So I think it was a very important tool in the story, and an important metaphor also for what we could consider limits to women's freedoms.
Beautifully said. I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you, Hamza.
Really lovely to meet you, Kiran.
Thank you.